This is Wendy Montroy, and you're listening to Turtle Tea with TTPG. We're bringing you bite-sized turtle and tortoise species, care, and husbandry info. This show is brought to you by the Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group, whose mission is to ensure the survival of the world's turtles and tortoises through captive breeding. Today we're talking to Jason and Tara Troxel from Arctic Reptile Ranch about Galapagos tortoises. I'm going to let you say the species name because I'm going to mangle it.
Oh, Calanoidus.
Thank you.
Calanoidus and species, when we talk about naturals, we'll talk about whether it's species, subspecies, and why there's so much argument about it.
Okay, awesome. Welcome, and thank you both for joining me today. Can you tell me how you got started with this species?
Well, we were in Alaska, and I was looking on fauna, and I found somebody in, Palmer, Alaska, which is just north of where we were in Eagle River, which is a suburb of Anchorage. And they were selling Burmese star tortoises. I was like, well, crap, I wouldn't have to pay shipping. You know, back then, Burmese star tortoises were probably still about in the $1,000 range. So shipping to Alaska was usually about $150 FedEx overnight. So I'm like, this is great. So we, messaged back and forth, talked a little bit, and ended up buying the two Burmese star tortoises that were both, when they were incubated, temperature sexed female, which that turned out great because we have babies from them. So, several years later, we have babies from them. But he apparently had lived down here, and some of our tortoise friends that we got to know later knew who this person was. And he had purchased Galapagos tortoises from Jerry Fife back in 2014. I think that was like his second or third year producing them. It was like early on when Jerry had done that. And he decided to move his collection to Alaska. He wanted to go up there, and I don't remember what industry he was in, maybe carpentry. I can't remember. But he just wanted to go Alaska and earn money because there was a building boom up there. So he moved to Alaska, and he had a bunch of Burmese stars, and he was selling off his tortoises because he was getting into high-end red-eared sliders. He wanted to get all the morphs and all the color things and whatnot. And when we got to know him, we found out that he had a radiated tortoise and Galapagos tortoises. I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, I'll you guys can see them. I'm like, whoa. So we bought a couple of Burmese stars from him, and then we ended up buying his radiated from him. And then when we found out that we're definitely not going to retire in Alaska, we're going to come down here back to Arizona, he had decided that time that he was going to stay in Alaska. He knew that was no place for Galops. We knew that was no place for Galops. And because we were both residents of Alaska at the time, I bought them from him. He knew they needed to go back, but he wasn't willing to just give them to bring back. So I still had to buy them from him. And that was October 31st of 2017 is when we became Galapagos owners. And we were coming back August of 2018. So it was going to be just under a year up in Alaska before we came down here. And at the time, I didn't know exactly where, but my career field, there was only a few bases I could go to, and most of them were southern bases where the climate would be favorable to these guys. And it just happened. We got lucky that Arizona was the place. And I'd already had a couple friends down here that were tortoise keepers. So it just great luck. The big Air Force really read my mind and got me to the place that I needed to be.
And a lot of luck in finding them too. What are the chances of finding Galapagos and Burmese star in Alaska?
Very slim.
Yeah,
crazy.
We were the only reptile people up there. So there's people with onesies, twosies,
but not big collections.
Yeah. Nobody. I would. Not a lot of reptile keepers.
There aren't enough keepers up there to have things like reptile expos.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, let's dive into the natural history. Obviously, native range is the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador.
Right.
They're native to, I think, 7 of the islands. Or am I off on that?
No, you're probably, I believe, evidence and fossil, there's 9 islands where they've occurred.
Okay.
But they're only living right now on 7 of them. And even that, when it comes to the natural history, is here and there.
That I noticed that while trying to research that there's a lot of conflicting.
Yes. So from just a pure geography standpoint, the islands that we see today are not the islands that the tortoises floated to. Most genetic studies put that at about 1.5 million years ago. As far as age goes, Galapagos tortoises are kind of one of the newest kids on the block. They're actually one of the most recently evolved tortoises. And at before humans populated the West Indies over here in Florida, there were about 10 different species of giant tortoises living in the Caribbean islands. And so there was a mass radiation of giant tortoises out of South America to the various islands. And the Galapagos just happened to be the last place that people got to, which is why they're still there. Even Florida had a giant tortoise species living in it.
I've seen the fossils. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that what's his name? Jason Abels was using his tortoises to do a study on sea dispersal, because in the Caribbean islands, the tortoises were all extinct before even Columbus got here. The humans, when they like within hundreds of years of humans arriving anywhere, tortoises tend to disappear. And those tortoises were very important for sea dispersal. And like bananas, bananas they say are going extinct because there's no sea dispersers anymore. And tortoises were kind of one of the main groups of that. And that's because giant tortoises were all over the Caribbean islands, down into Mexico, all over there. So a lot of people know that Chaco tortoises are the closest relative of Galapagos tortoises. That doesn't mean that Chacos evolved into. The last common ancestor they shared. Yeah, if you were to go and try to dig up on the islands of Galapagos, you're not going to find a bunch of little Chaco tortoises and then slow evolution into giant tortoises. Getting to an island like that kind of takes being a giant to begin with. The buoyancy, the amount of fat stores to go from a mainland, kind of just drift around. They can swim somewhat. They've seen tortoises out off of Aldabra between there and Madagascar swimming along, but they're not very good at it. So they're not really making it there. They're really at the whims of the currents to get where they are. And so the Galapagos Islands are between 5 and 3 million years old, that they've been, bubbling up from volcanoes and stuff. And about 10,000 years ago wasn't the biggest glacial maximum, but it was the end of the Ice Age. The number of islands that you would see would have been a lot less because the water level was a lot lower. So Santa Cruz and Isabella Island were one island, and a lot of the little other islands were part of. There's like 2 or 3 main land masses there for a long time. Before that, I think we're 2.6 million years ago is when the current ice age that we are in, and there's been about 12 glacial maximums, minimums. We're at a glacial minimum right now. The biggest glacial maximum, the difference in sea level, it was about 300 meters. That's 900 and some feet.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more land exposed. So the kind of neat thing is the species that we see now, we're like, well, they must have floated this island and they bred with these ones and these ones diverged off. Chances are they were on one big landmass at one point, and those are the ones that were on higher ground. As the water rose, they migrate a little bit, and that's just kind of where they ended up. But at one point in time, there were probably different giant tortoise species that ended up there. Fossil records on Galapagos, very not good. They're volcanic islands, so they're made by volcano lava spewing over and making more landmass. So if there's any fossils there, trying to find them is kind of difficult. So what's out in the open or in easily accessible areas is really all you're going to get from islands like that. So just basically right now, using DNA and kind of estimating when these changes occurred is the best guess and the best tool that they have to figure out when they got there, when they branched off from each other, and to what degree they've branched off from each other. And what's really neat is, for a while, I think there were 15, just because right now the most recent paper says they're species. I think the IUCN recognizes subspecies. We'll go the Marvel route and call them genetic variants.
Okay.
Because they are distinct. They're distinct enough, but the argument is, are they distinct enough to be species? Some say yes, some say no. And there were, for a while, 15 known, but when they sequenced the DNA of the farthest east island, they sequenced the DNA of that animal. It's actually different than animals that are currently on that island. But that was the one that the scientific name came from. So the ones on the island, while they're still referred to by that scientific name, technically they're a different species. So there's actually 16 known, and I believe now that they found Fernandina, 13 extant living still species of Galapagos. And you have two basic shapes. You have the dome ones, which is what we have, and then you have the saddleback, and they kind of occur in different areas. Some islands have a mixture of them, and it's not known whether those were naturally there or they're the result of ships tossing them off and they just kind of washed up and intermingled because they are using intermingled tortoises from the north of Isabel Island to kind of repopulate islands where the tortoises had been extirpated by people or the stuff that we brought to those islands. So when we didn't directly kill them, the stuff that we did ended up killing them or making it hard for them to breed. The TTPG, the one fella gave a talk about how
Yeah.
there was over 100 years of no tortoises breeding because the rats would eat the babies. I'm
Right.
sure they were probably eating the eggs too if they weren't
Yep.
dug down far enough. Rats, they got a pretty good sniffer. But yeah, so those goats outcompete. They eat the same stuff that the tortoises want. And
Yep.
so if there are babies coming up, there's nothing for them to really eat and nowhere for them to get in and hide. Some of those islands, because they're volcanic, are extremely rocky and you really can't, there's not a lot of places to dig. So that the animals have persisted there for so long, it just is a testament of how tough these tortoises really can be. So
Yeah, I read that the population went from like an estimated 250,000 in the 16th century to 15,000 in the 70s. So, and they were saying that introduced mammal species was a big part of that, taking them to be like, we don't have to store this food type thing was a big part of it. And, today the kind of tourism and development of land for agriculture is a threat as well.
yeah, agriculture is a problem there. There's also a plant. It's a type of kind of like what we consider briar. It's a patchy thing, and it's one of the studies that I sent over to you. It's so pervasive, and the tortoises can't eat it, but they also can't get through it, and it's growing
Oh,
along their migratory routes. So now, even though they've been taking the same routes for centuries, they have to find a new way to get there, and sometimes they're not getting to where they want to be because of introduced plant species. I've seen on Discovery type things that there are agreements that ranchers know not to mess with them, and if the tortoises go through, they're going to bust their fences. But oh well,
yeah.
you're going to just be fixing a fence.
Yeah.
Now that's the official line. We know how humans really are, so some ranchers may tolerate that better than others.
Yeah,
That's
true.
kind of a sad fact you don't want to think about, but that is another thing that was pretty big in the decimation of Galapagos tortoises. Everybody talks about all the whalers and all the pirates and just the regular ships that were there in the 1800s or like 16, 1700s. In the 1800s, when the gold rush happened in California, hundreds and thousands of tortoises were brought up the coast because that was fresh meat in California. I've seen menus that, fresh Galapagos tortoise soup, blah, blah, blah. So tortoises, the ones that ended up probably in collections up there, most of them, or not most of them, handful probably originated from them bringing those tortoises up for food in the 1850s. So that's a little known, hey, we did it too. It wasn't just people in the
Yeah.
far past. It was
Right.
people in our recent history that were killing these things off because we really didn't understand what extinction was. Extinction, I'm not even sure when they accepted the concept of extinction, but it was in the last century, in the 1900s, is when extinction was like really like, yeah, I guess it can happen.
Yeah.
So, and then when it comes to their giantness, everybody, or when I was a kid, what I learned was island gigantism. Because they're on
Right. Yep.
islands and there's not a lot of predators, they evolved into giant sizes. In the last 20 to 30 years, that has been completely debunked. It's not even close to the truth. Now, we'll go back to that idea of no predators in a second. But around the world, there in fossil records, there are more giant tortoises, we'll say 30 inches and larger. There are more species of giant tortoises than there are current species alive of tortoises. My brain, off the top of my head, I think if you don't count the Galapagos as 13 species, when you just count them as like one complex, there's
Yeah.
like 45, 46, maybe in the 50s of tortoise species. There were more than that giant tortoises. And as Homo erectus moved out of Africa and down through Asia, and then as Homo sapiens moved throughout there's a very clear record of human fossils are there, tortoise fossils go away. And giant tortoises, they're not very fast. They're pretty easy to catch, easy to eat, and they're easy to make go extinct because the amount of time it takes a tortoise
Right.
to become reproductive, especially the giant species, take even longer than, say, redfoots or our Burmese stars. So you take out one female and you've just killed 80 years of
Right.
time. So there were in India right now, I think is the largest giant tortoise, which about the size of a Volkswagen. I want to say its shell length was 7 or 8 feet long.
Oof.
So Galapagos tortoises now they're about a big one is about 4.5 feet. And there were even a type of turtle called Myelania, that was the genus name, that lived in New Caledonia, Lord Howe Islands down there south of Indonesia, where Leachianus geckos come from,
Yeah.
and New Caledonia geckos. Those ones, there was one that was 200 meters long, that's 6 feet long. It was a turtle with a long spiky tail and horns that it couldn't even bring into its shell. One of them, the person that discovered it, named it Ninja Emis, which is Ninja Turtle. So it's Ninja Emis Reeves, I think, like Reeves Ninja Turtle. So there were giant turtles and tortoises all over the world. And then people come along. So the only place left for giant tortoises are where people haven't been yet. And that would be the
Small
islands.
island.
So you
Yeah.
got Galapagos, you have the Aldabra Atoll, the Seychelles Islands, Mauritius, Reunion Island down there, all off the coast of Madagascar. There were at in the 1500s, there were 6 species of giant tortoises in like Mauritius, Reunion Island, that area, that within 200 years were gone once people got there. But not just from people eating them, but also from introduced cats, rats, goats, pigs, just tear up the ecosystem. So yeah, within 200 years, 6 species of giant tortoises that had managed to make it several 100,000 years of human ancestors moving around the world, and then we kill them out in 2 centuries.
Yeah.
There was a giant tortoise species on Aldabra, or excuse me, on Madagascar, and a lot of people thought that the giant tortoise species was where the Aldabras came from. And there was genetic study done 2-ish years ago that determined that, yeah, this one is not the Aldabra. So this is a completely different giant tortoise species that is related somewhat to the Aldabras, but it's also related to the radiated tortoises. So while only subfossils have been found, it's not old enough to be fossilized, mineralized, so they can still extract DNA. I don't believe any of the scoots were preserved. So there's no telling if it was just drab and bland the way,
Striped. Or...
yeah, the way our Galapagos
Yeah.
or if it was striped the way the way a radiated tortoise, and to a smaller extent, the plowshare tortoise has like kind of little radiations coming out, and spider tortoises.
Yeah.
So yeah, the world was covered in giant tortoises for a long time. There was a species of sulcata. Sulcatas are about 20-ish million years old. There's a species of them that was even more giant. There's a species of leopard tortoises that was even bigger than that. So even Africa, where we have found fossils,
Mhm.
same thing. Giant tortoises. Here comes various hominids.
Yeah.
There
And they
go the turtles and
disappear.
tortoises. So and that's been kind of an understood and known thing for at least 20 years, but a lot of the literature still says island
Island
gigantism.
gigantism. Yeah.
Now,
So
the
it's not the islands making them big, it's the pressure from the people driving them to the islands.
right.
And that's why they end up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were already in the islands. The people didn't quite get there until
Right.
later. So they persisted out there. It's a good way of putting it. Now, what's interesting is what's attributed to island gigantism, the lack of predators and stuff, is probably why tortoises evolved in the first place. Because dinosaurs and other large reptiles and the various avian dinosaurs, very good hunters, very fast. A slow moving, snackable thing probably wouldn't have lasted very long. But after the meteor hit, there was a good 10 or 15 million years where, most predators wiped out and everything is starting to re-evolve and stuff. And that gave turtles time to become land turtles, not just have to swim away. And a lot of people don't realize this, but all the sea turtles that are from the dinosaur era, those all went extinct too. So every modern sea turtle evolved after 65 million years ago. So
Right.
there
They
was,
had to start again too.
yeah. So there was a second convergent evolution of these animals, and they morphologically, when you look at the skeletons, they look a lot alike. Somebody that's their thing can point out the various differences in the ancient sea turtles versus new ones. But for the most part, they planogram wise, they look basically the same. Flippers, shell, head.
Yeah.
Not quite a hard shell the way these freshwater and tortoises are, but yeah, they came out a second time.
So when they did get down to that kind of, they're realizing, oh, hey, there's only 15,000 of these and they've dropped dramatically. They did start captive breeding and hatchling release programs. Is that right?
Yeah, the Charles Darwin Center is on Santa Cruz Island. It's kind of the main one. There are two types of Galapagos from there, and but all of the breeding for the different islands all occurs there. I think there's another station somewhere. It was in the Galapagos book that we saw at the TTBG. I've had that for a few years, and our friend Jerry Fife was over yesterday, and my other friend Wendy was over. So we like, hey Jerry, get this book. It's a great book on them. There's a handful of studies that I sent over to you that every one of them is referenced in that book, and there's some bit of narrative in that book about what they were doing.
Okay.
And so yeah, they started captive raising them, and they've had some successes, some not as much. And now we're at a point where there are islands that are on the rebound. And what's really interesting is if these were mammals, never could have happened. They were talking about Diego, the
Yeah.
tortoise that spent, was it 40 years at the San Diego Zoo? And then another
Yes.
40 years back on the island making
Yes.
babies. And then they released him. They repatriated him to the wild. And I'm thinking, I thought his retirement was making babies. Like, that seems like their life. Going back to the harsh environment, I don't dig that. Like, I'm like, why? Like, just keep him there. He's been doing good. He's used to people, but he was the most prolific. But there were only two other males. So all of those tortoises that come from Diego or of the same species, most of them come from him. But there's three males, so they're all kind of interrelated. But
Yeah.
it's not like mammals where that small of a gene pool
Yeah.
would
Would wipe them out.
yeah wipe them out or cause a lot of genetic problems
Like inbreeding
because
depression and yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. They now, even though they are still not dinosaurs and relatively young, they've still been evolving and kind of weeding out the weak ones for a lot longer. So they've got some really good genes working for them. So even when that's a small gene pool, it's still a lot better, and you can repopulate an entire species from a lot fewer than if
From a
you're trying to
few
yeah
individuals. Yeah.
than if you're trying to save tigers or something like the Caspian lion or something like that. It's a lot easier to do it that way, or a lot easier
So
to do it with them.
I know they're IUCN listed. Some of the species are extinct. Some of they're saying vulnerable, and they've been ESA listed since the 70s. They're currently illegal to import. Do you know anything about the legality of keeping them in the U.S.? Are there specific states where you can't keep them? What's that look like?
As of right now, other than states that don't let you import reptiles in and out, and USARK, they always do stuff every year about trying to get rid of those laws. There's areas that might not let you keep exotic animals or exotic turtles and tortoises, but there's no specific laws about keeping Galapagos tortoises.
Okay.
Most animals that are endangered, that aren't dangerous, like a tiger or certain bears, there really aren't a lot of laws about keeping them. The laws revolve around commerce. So you have two things that kind of affect the U.S. Obviously, the ESA, the United States Endangered Species Act, is one, but CITES is another one that affects all countries. CITES is a convention on international trade of endangered species,
Hmm.
and that keeps they keep good numbers, maybe, and they also regulate the movement from country to country of tortoises or all animals that are listed on our CITES, which is pretty much all wildlife.
Yeah.
Some are not allowed to be moved, and like I guess sometimes zoos might be able to get permission, or some institutions get CITES one are the most endangered animals. They're not supposed to. There should be no commerce or no movement from country to country. EU has their own exceptions over there because the European Union, all those bunch of countries, when they became the EU, there was a lot of interesting things that happened over there to kind of make stuff uniform. I don't live there, so I'm not an expert on that, but I've seen that with tortoise keepers, like they have to have certain permits and stuff. But in the United States, most states, there are no prohibitions on keeping Galapagos tortoises specifically. Where the prohibitions come from is selling them, commerce, trading them. If, let's say, a baby Galapagos tortoise is 5,000 and three Aldabras are $5,000. I could not go to California and trade those animals because even though it's an equal amount of money, it's still a trade. It's still a commerce type
You're
thing.
getting
It's the way,
something for it. Yeah.
yeah, I'm getting something different. Now, if I had a male Galapagos tortoise and somebody had a female Galapagos tortoise in California, because it's the same species, I could drive over there and we could swap them. Like, oh, cool, thanks.
Oh, I
That,
didn't know you could do that.
yeah, you can trade one for one of the same
Okay.
species. Obviously, you can't sell them directly, so
Right.
I couldn't sell one of
No
my
money
tortoises to
for
somebody.
that. Yeah.
Right. Now, if I decided to, like I've done before, well, or my work decides to tell me that I'm going to be moving, I can take all of my animals and move them to another location throughout the country because there's no commerce involved. I own the animals. I'm going to
Right.
New Mexico. I'm going to Illinois. I'm going to Montana. I'm going to where, well, I don't want to go to those places with my tortoises, but I can go to all of those places legally with my animals so long as that state doesn't have its own thing like, hey, we don't want you bringing your tortoises here because so long as the state says you're good, you and your tortoises can move wherever. Now, you can also put them out on breeding loans. So I have 10 female Galapagos tortoises and somebody in Nevada has a male Galapagos tortoise. He can bring that tortoise down to me and they can make as many babies as they want. And that's a breeding loan, which is also a very legal thing. You can
Okay.
also technically gift them to somebody. If I wanted to say, hey, happy birthday, here's a tortoise. The problem with gifting is proving that it was a pure gift. Let's say
Right.
you
That
and
there
I had
was
some,
nothing in
yeah,
return.
yeah,
Because,
you and
like,
I had some kind of business relationship where,
right.
I was selling you these tortoises and you're like, you've been a pretty good person to me, good prices. I'm going to give you a Galapagos tortoise,
They can
so
look at any
quid pro quo.
transactions within that area and be like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
This looks fishy. This looks fishy. So that's where gifting gets a little bit, you know,
Complicated.
yeah, complicated.
Yeah.
The tortoises that we have from the GTA, from the Galapagos Tortoise Alliance, those are on lifelong breeding loans. So until
Okay.
we decide we no longer want these animals for some reason, we are their stewards until time ends. Now, if it turns out that all four of mine end up being male and 50 others are female, the GTA technically owns them. They're going to want to move these animals around, which
Yeah.
I'd be like, of course, yes, do that because that keeps the population alive. If I was a selfish person, I'd be like, no, no. Well, it'd be too bad. It's in the paperwork. You agree to this. They're going to move to help the species. It's for the species, not for the keepers. That's the
Right.
whole point of putting them in different places. Also, seeing what techniques work the best, or what techniques work well, because there are many different techniques. But
So let's get a little bit into captive care. I'm going to assume just because of their size, we're talking about what, like 200 to 600 pounds and up, that this is not an animal for a beginner.
No.
definitely not. So a breeding female can be in the mid hundreds on up, and females can get 300 to 400 pounds. Males can top out 6, 7, 800 pounds, and they're significantly larger. So they definitely take up a lot of space. Period. Now, when it
And
comes to actual care and stuff,
I've heard the males can be a little bit spicy.
They can be, for sure. But I wouldn't even say that it's just the males. I think I have seen female tortoises, and not in Galapagos tortoises, but I've seen females also kind of
Get
engage
into it.
in. Yeah, yeah. We don't actually know the sex of our Galapagos tortoises yet.
although, like I said, our friend Jerry Fife, who actually his bred, or ours are babies from the ones that he had breeding many years ago. He and our friend Wendy, she has Galapagos tortoises that are currently breeding and trying to make babies. They are convinced, looking at some of the visual signs, that they are very likely males.
Oh, okay.
She'd been telling me, you know, females have these little dollopy tails, little small tails, and like when I look at our tortoises and I compare them, in my brain, scaling it up, look at the male Burmese star or the male Indian star tortoises, their tails are dramatically larger and longer, but that doesn't happen until they become sexually mature, when their man parts start growing to prepare for
Right.
mating, so the tail starts to extend. Right now, the base of my tortoise's tails is almost as big around as it's about half as round as their leg, as the base of their thighs,
Oh,
which
wow.
apparently is compared to a female large. Also, because you
Yeah.
can, like, another sort of telltale sign is if you can take their tail and kind of pull it and it's a little bit longer than their shell, sticks out beyond their shell, that's also a good sign that it's probably going to be a male. And every now and then I'll get them to elevator up so I can take a picture under their shell, and the one that's a little bit larger, his concavity is becoming significant. Before,
Okay.
like when again, scaling up in my head, I would take our Indian star female, look at her belly. There's a little bit there, like where it's kind of on the edges. There's a little bit of concavity, but she's obviously a female. And it kind of looked like that. Yesterday, when we were on there looking, we're like, oh, no, that's a concave plastron for sure.
Yeah.
And then the other one, Beagle, is also his shell has kind of the same. He's about 2 inches shorter, but his shell shape is also a little bit more narrow. And like a lot of tortoises, like Burmese stars, males are a little bit more narrow
Yep.
than the females are. So we've been calling them he's forever just because, no good reason. But we're pretty sure now, and they're pretty sure that they are males, and they're 11 years old, and we're still 11 years old tortoises trying to figure this out. They can become sexually active at 17ish years, but that's kind of on the early side. So that's like the minimum age, and they're just now after a decade, they're just now showing signs of what they might be.
So, what's your recommended enclosure size for, I mean, juveniles all the way up? I would hope anyone who gets a Galapagos knows you're looking at needing a lot of space.
Yes, size. There's Florida, I know, has rules when you're keeping all reptiles. They say minimum this many times its length, this many times its width. Once I got away from snakes and became a tortoise keeper, I was always trying to build something bigger and more
Yeah.
spacious. So I honestly couldn't tell you what the minimum is because I don't build to the minimum. I want to give
Right.
them space. You look at it this way. These animals live on islands that are square miles large, and they have the
And they're
entire
walking
island.
through it, the whole thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
like some of them are migrating miles and miles every year up, and then miles and miles back. So the more space you can give them, the better. Now we start off in a climate controlled environment with them, and it's a PVC cage that's 4 feet by 2 feet, so that's the ground area. And they were born June of 24, so they're just over a year, and they're already too big for that. Like that's just
Yeah.
their nighttime enclosure now, and they
Yeah.
they are so loud and clompy. The next step up will be a medium waterland enclosure, and those are how they're about 30 wide by 60 long. So 2.5 feet by 5 feet is the next stage up that they can go in for a little while, but very soon they have to go into something larger. And when we were in Alaska, ours began to outgrow that waterland tub before we moved down here. So I had to
Yeah.
get really creative and took those the sleds that you use when you're going duck hunting or snowing. You're going ice fishing.
Yeah.
They were like 5 feet each. I cut them so that they would fit together and bolted them together, siliconed it so that water wouldn't leak out onto our carpet, and made that giant thing. I think in fact, it's standing up in our garage and barely fits in there. So it's 8 feet by about 4 feet wide. And that was good to get them down here.
I
And
think I've heard people say, "Oh, I'll get a little tiny baby Galap or Aldabra, and I've got plenty of time to figure out
No,
the space." You don't, do
you
you?
don't have enough time.
talk time.
5 years goes by so quickly. We've been here for just over 7 at this point, and when we first got here, Beagle and Fitz were, I don't know, like 20 pounds or so. And I thought, oh my gosh, like we have time, right? But very, very soon, the edge of their enclosure space, outdoor enclosure space, had to be expanded. And then not long after that, all the way to the back fence, because you so very quickly run out of time and they're growing so rapidly. I'm seeing that in some of our younger ones as well. The yearlings, yeah, the yearlings they're outgrowing the one that's inside right now, but they're also outgrowing our baby cages that we use for every other hatchling species. They're
Right.
just essentially rabbit cages, but they're too big to like fit through the little doorway anymore. And so now we just sort of created an extra little enclosure because we have a ton of mallow from all the flooding that's been happening. And they are just chomping through that. And it's great because they can eat literally all day long if they want to. And by the time I bring them in for the evening, they are so tuckered out that it is peaceful. I don't hear
No
clambering or
stomping.
nope, nothing. So
So
yeah,
that's a good segue. What are you guys feeding them mostly?
basically anything green that they want to eat.
They'll just eat everything.
Anything. They are amazing garbage disposals. I say that in like a funny tone, really, but they'll eat anything from dandelion to spring mix to escarole and endive. Like I said, I'm using the fresh mallow right now. A ton of little grasses are popping up too. I think it's a type of rescue grass out here. They're eating that to like the ground. Yes, mulberry leaves, cactus pads. We have a ton of different cactuses that have been planted since we got here. And so these things are like 10 feet tall now. Fantastic to just like, lop a cactus pad off and just slice it in half, and they will go through that so quickly.
So they are not picky.
No.
No. Their staple is hay. There's always hay out there for them. Or is it once or twice a week twice a week, the small ones are getting what we call diet, which is hay pellets.
Yeah.
With added psyllium. Psyllium is a fiber husk.
Fiber.
Is a husk.
Yep.
Yeah. A little bit added fiber because all these human packaged foods and even some of the stuff that's growing out there still a little bit deficient in fiber compared to
It's
what
pretty
they've
low
been getting in the
fiber.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it tastes good, it probably doesn't have a lot of fiber, and it probably has more sugar than fiber.
Yeah.
And so she does that once or twice a week, and they get that diet. It's just what do you call it?
It's
Hay pellets.
It's horse pellets.
Yeah, it looks like the Zoomed tortoise diets,
but just giant.
Yeah, just big squares of it.
It takes an hour to soak and fully absorb. By the way, so I
they
start
must
at
be
like
huge.
6 o'clock in the morning, so that by the time I'm ready to go feed, it's like mostly soft for me to work with.
And when it comes to what they can't eat, there's not a lot. I can't remember what island it is, but there's an island with like little death apple is what they call it, and it's manzanita apple or something like that. And it's so toxic that if you touch the branches or sap gets on your skin, it's going to burn your skin.
Ooh.
The tortoises eat them and have no problem. They digest it, no problem.
Do you guys do any fruit, or do you kind of stay away from that? With
not a lot of fruit.
Okay.
Pumpkin. I'm not sure if it's a vegetable or fruit. It grows on a vine, so I guess there's
pumpkins seasonally. Usually, in October I'll get some pumpkin, and usually what happens is I feed them pumpkin, and then a few weeks later we start seeing, pumpkin starts popping up out of the ground.
Yeah, they're planting it for you.
Yeah. We moved a couple of them. And
they're seed dispersing.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some fresh pumpkins from those. What else have we fed off to them? Honeydew.
Yeah, honeydew. Yeah, we had that grown once.
Was it cantaloupe too, or?
Well, it was honeydew.
Okay.
It is a cantaloupe. So,
do you do any supplements at all, calcium and stuff like that?
Yes, for the younger ones, for sure. I still calcium powder to their food, but I also use a ton of supplements and various grasses and leaves and just flowers from Capodillo Farms.
Okay.
Their small cut grasses are perfect for hatchlings because it almost looks like this fine green powder. So it sticks to whatever you're using, whether that's mulberry leaves, spring, whatever. And
so they don't have a choice. They're eating it with.
Yeah. And I grow hibiscus flowers because I love to look at them, but also because they're fantastic flowers to feed off. And so every day I'll pick a few flowers off and I'll use that as like a topper to stuff too.
Yeah. Supplements are really good and they do their job. But if you're feeding a very varied diet that has, plants that have a little more calcium in them, plants that have a little more phosphorus, they're going to get a lot from the varied diet. If you're only feeding it romaine, which a lot of people for some reason still do, only romaine, then yes, you need to add calcium. So you need to supplement the crap out of that. Or if you're only feeding them spring mix, there's a lot of vitamins in spring mix. There's nothing wrong with it, but it can't be their only food.
Yeah.
You have to give them a wide variety of plants. And even some of the stuff that places will call no feeds, like kale. They don't want you to feed in kale because it has a high phosphorus to calcium ratio, but it has a ton of vitamins and minerals in it. So if you feed something else, or if you supplement a tiny bit of calcium, kale's a perfectly good food. It's not a staple only food.
Right. It's a rotate in. Yeah.
It's good. If just chop up like a salad, your salad that you eat, it's not just one plant. It's a handful of plants. Same concept. Give them a wide variety and they'll thrive. They'll grow, like you said, very quickly.
Half the time when I'm going through like our vegetables at the end of the week, if I have like leftover green beans or something like that, that's why I call them the garbage disposals, because they will get everything left over.
So these guys, as far as tortoises goes, they're fairly expensive. So would you say they're hard to get? Like, does it depend on you have to have a breeder of them in your state?
You definitely have, obviously, yeah, if you're trying to purchase one,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there are California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida are the only states I know of where they are in the private sector where you could purchase one from being bred at any rate. And even down here in Arizona, I don't think Jerry's produced any in a couple years. The last time I remember seeing babies was 2018 or 19. Yeah, yeah, I think the last year he produced babies was probably 2018. And so, yeah, they are expensive, and you would have to live in that state, be a resident of that state to get one.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I went to our local exotic store just a couple days ago and they have like 8 Galap babies in there,
Yeah,
which,
Wow.
yeah, they took out a loan probably to get those. They hope to repay quickly.
yeah. I'm
Um,
assuming they probably got them at Daytona because there's just a ton down
right.
there, you know?
Yeah, and there are a handful of Galapagos breed. No, maybe not a handful, but there's a few that are down there in Florida.
Yeah.
Um, But price wise for babies, you can see them for as I've seen them as low as 4,000. 5,000 seems to be the price they've been for a long time. Now the pet store, I'm not sure if they got a bunch of they're selling at a good price or if they bought them at that price and like what were they selling them for at that store?
I think they were 2,500 a piece.
What for Galapagos?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't bought any in a long time. So that 2,500, that's like Aldabra. Like we used to call Aldabras discount Galaps because they're like one third, one quarter of the price, but they
Yeah.
still get big and cool and they're neat,
Yeah.
and they're readily available. They're not listed on the ESA, but
Right.
Galapagos tortoises, like we know, are. So yeah, $2,500. That is relatively inexpensive. I almost want to move to Florida, be a resident for a few months.
We're
Just
not moving to Florida.
all right. Well, I need genetic diversity. No, I'm just kidding. I'll leave you out here. You can take care of all the
I
tortoises
see.
while I'm gone. While I'm gone, making my residency.
So normally I ask people if there's anything about the species that would make you not recommend them. I'm going to guess if you're not prepared for an animal of size that needs to be kept warm because you can't just say, "Oh, dig a burrow and brewmate." Like,
Yeah, they don't exactly burrow the way that sulcatas do.
right.
They do dig. They do move a lot of earth. Like we have wallows out there that buffalo could get into.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, like they're so big and they just move dirt around to get comfortable. We miss them in the summertime to keep them cool. That way the mud's nice and cool and they can get down in the mud. And when it rains, they just dig these huge wallows where just the top of their shell and their head showing. There's tons of pictures of like that from the Galapagos Islands. So it's really cool when we see them doing stuff like that
They were so happy
that
when it flooded.
that we see in books from the wild. Yeah. Also, something that you may need to be prepared for is we lovingly call them galop holes because they are a-holes. They are a very not so much territorial. They fight a lot. Is the only way to put it.
Even the little ones will fight a
Oh,
lot.
really? Because I
Yeah.
know your larger ones are kept separately. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you might get 2 tortoises and you're spending $5,000 on 2 tortoises. Like, oh, I've got plenty of yard space. Do you have double that yard space? Because you may not be able to keep them together. Now, initially, I spent quite a lot on these guys. So the first time I saw them fighting when they were small, I'm like, oh my god, he's going to bite his eyeball off. He's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
There's like 10 of these in the world, not 10, but there's not very many of these in the world. We got to break them up.
Right.
That I think was a mistake.
Yeah, it
Because
was.
they probably would have figured it out without hurting each other too much. Now, what we saw in that one TTPG presentation, he was showing how they would, one goes higher, one goes higher.
Yeah.
Whoever's the biggest, he's the winner, and the other one
Yeah.
wanders off. Ours never watched that talk, and they also didn't watch on Discovery Channel where it tells of that because they bite the hell out of each other.
Oh,
Like one
no.
has a chip mouth because they bit each other. That's why the walls are as high as they are. And like every couple of years, here's an expense. You've got to make new walls that are higher if you don't start off with really high walls.
And wood is expensive now.
Yeah, because they get bigger.
Yes.
Yeah. Not even wood. Like if you wanted to make a brick wall, well, you got to keep making that brick wall or pavers, various cinder blocks. You still got to keep going up and you got to add to it. So if you're getting a couple Galapagos tortoises, know that they may not be able to live together. So
Yeah.
you need
And
twice the space. So everything we do for them, it's double the effort.
And you
So
can't
that,
just stack cinder blocks. They're going to knock right through that, right? So
well,
you're
as it
doing
turns out,
rebar and
Yesterday we had a funny little thing happen.
yeah, I have some cinder blocks. That I don't even remember what I use them for, but right now they're kind of just they're set up in an arc, and I have something on top of that I can kind of sit on when I'm out there. They're serving no real purpose. In the middle of them, so there's a couple that are stacked too high, cinder blocks. In the middle, there's like this little bit of grass, like a little bit of mallow, like not
A
even
tiny little
yeah,
piece of mallow, and Fitz honed in.
yeah. He saw the green because he was high enough, and he saw it over that, and he got himself up there and top centered on that,
oh my
and
God.
then he knocked the two top ones off when he was trying to spin around and turn back
Oh,
around to get to the
jeez.
food that he saw, and so like I'm trying to pull the bricks and coax him off there. He eventually climbed down, but yeah, they'll go right through a brick wall that the cinder blocks that aren't cemented down. They're not quite to the destructive nature that you see sulcatas, you know, undermining foundations or busting through walls, but they are as big and strong. So if they wanted to be, they could definitely go through stuff. Like the fences we have work for them, but if they were really motivated, I'm pretty sure they could take out the fences that we've made. But they have a lot of space out there, and even though they're out wandering around, nibbling up food and stuff, they're not starving. They're not.
Right.
They're very content in the space they have.
They're
So
not
there's no
bored.
reason.
They're not
Yeah,
penned
Yeah.
in.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not busting through those. But I mean, they climb up on them to get to the cactuses.
But they can be incredibly stubborn.
Yes,
Yes, definitely
that's
very
another thing to
stubborn.
consider.
Yeah. So with Galapagos tortoises, if you're experiencing nights that are going to be, especially like young Galapagos tortoises under 65, get them in for sure. And at that size, you can just pick them up, right? It's nice and easy.
Yeah.
But when they're a decade, 11 years old, there's no more picking them up because those two tortoises weigh more than I do, and I'm 120 pounds. So,
Yeah.
you just kind of have to build a relationship in order to get them to come back inside. Now, some tortoises are really, really smart, and they're going to do that on their own. But the Galops tend to be very stubborn. And especially Fitz, he will find his corner because he knows exactly where the morning sun hits. But if
Right.
it's dropping into the 40s at night, I can't let him stay out. I just
Yeah.
don't want to risk that. Even though I know the sun is coming, I'm just
Right.
not that chancy. Thankfully, he's very attuned to my voice. So usually I can get him to come in that way. But if you have one that, isn't so attuned like that, you're going to have to use some sort of other motivation method. Food works great if you can do that.
Yeah.
Right now, mallow's working fantastic. But we used to use the little Missouri pellets.
Yeah.
We call it like the little ET method.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Reese's Pieces
leaving
in.
Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, get them inside. She's not kidding. When it comes to what she said about them growing fast and that, it's been more than 3 years since I've been able to lift them up to move them.
Yeah.
So when they were just over about 6 years is probably for most tortoises growing at a decent rate about the limit of easily picking them up and moving them. So there was a while when we would use like the Rubbermaid cart and try to push them into that and cart them over
Yeah.
and then kind of dump them out again. They were really not fans of that.
I'm sure.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, like you got to find a way to move them around to go where you want them to go. And for her, that's usually like, coaxing along. I've seen people on YouTube and I've tried it too. It definitely works tapping them on the back of the shell with a walking stick, the rubber bottom and dunk, 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 dunk.
Yeah.
They hate that. And it works, but they really don't like it. And once they go inside, they may not come out the next day because they're that butthurt about it.
They're
Like,
very
Yeah,
sensitive.
yes, they're
You said that they would pout.
Yes.
yeah, like it's so weird how sensitive to stuff like that they can be. But I mean, realistically, we're like just a stick. But for them, what was hitting me? Was it a predator? Is it safe
Yeah.
to go back outside? So we look at it butthurt, but instinctually for them, that may not be a safe thing because something was attacking them. They couldn't see it because if they see me, I have to get right behind them. If they see me, they turn around and want to follow me, but they won't follow me in.
Right.
So it's
Of
like,
course.
so some mystery thing was pounding on the back of them. It's a light tap, but their tortoises are going to be dramatic, I guess, in their heads. Some
Yeah,
mystery
and their
thing.
shells are sensitive, and yeah.
So to them, it seems like not a big thing, but for them, it was like, oh my God, I almost died yesterday. I'm not going back outside.
Yeah.
Or
Thankfully, that the tapping them method only has to be used like once or twice a year.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
very
if you
rarely.
can't get them in by any other means and it's
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah.
cold, like
Yeah.
you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something else that you pick up as a tortoise keeper, and this is just in general, you're going to learn that sunrise and sunset routine because your whole day is going to revolve around that. If you're
Yep.
trying to like get them in before the sun sets, because after the sun sets, they're not moving.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so
Or-
much easier for
Yes.
us. We just check the weather. If it's going to be below, 55, we go pick everybody up and put them in. But you guys don't have that option.
No,
And
well,
you
there's
don't wanna
plenty we
wait
can pick
until-
up, but those guys, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So
Because I'm assuming when the sun goes down, they've powered down and they're just
Yep,
not moving.
they don't move.
Yeah.
yeah, even with a flashlight, I've tried to put a flashlight in front of them, so I think it's daylight in front of them to get them moving. And and it can take up to an hour to get them from one side of the enclosure to the
Wow.
other. And our backyard's an acre, and their area they've got about a quarter acre between the two of them. And that's, to me, like that's far, so about 100 and some feet from one of the corners that he likes to the barn. And we have a friend, he's part of the GTA out in California. His live on 5 acres.
Ooh,
And I'm like,
I wouldn't want to.
what? And there's hills involved on his property. I'm like,
that's scary.
so he knows the exact thing. He knows, but his are traveling a lot farther if that one is, and he has one. He said she's always at the back of the 5 acres, and like we flip out because of what's back here. We're like, oh my god, he's all the way in the back corner today. All right, I'll take
Right,
care
you
of
got to
it.
go 100 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas he this one other person's going 250 feet times 5, so they're going several football fields to get inside. And it can be a lot. So that's something that people need to really think about. It's not just a giant tortoise. It needs space. You might need double the space. And another thing people don't think about, we've been very lucky that ours have not been sick. If it gets sick, you've got to take it to the vet. There's not a whole lot of vets that do house calls. Some might, because it's kind of a unique thing. But so now you have a tortoise that you can't even pick up to bring inside. You've got to get it in the back of a vehicle and take it to a vet, get it out of the vehicle, get it seen, get it back. So that's an aspect that a lot of people don't really consider. And then, as exotic vets are, they're going to be a little bit more expensive than a typical vet.
Yep.
And then there might be something very unique about what's wrong that could become very expensive. I think it was 2 years ago, Dr. Sam had one that had some kind of fungal infection down in Florida.
Yeah.
We saw it on the Camp Ken on YouTube. He was there, and it had eaten some hay that had fungus on it or something, because it had been sitting and getting wet or whatever. I don't remember the complete story, but that animal was close to death, and he had to put a feeding tube in it, and he had a IV drip in it and stuff. And I think University of Florida was one that was doing the veterinary care. So
which is not close to him. So the
number he put out, it was in the 10s, 20s. It might even have been as high as 40 grand. I don't remember. I just remember being, when he said the number, I was like, oh, that's a car. That's you're paying for a vehicle for the vet care that one of these guys might need. Yeah. So that aspect is something that a lot of people, when they see this really neat looking little tortoise that turns into a giant, are like, oh, yeah. And when I hear that they're $2,500, part of the barrier to entry of keeping Galapagos was the price.
It's the price, yeah.
Yes. So being that, I'm not going to say affordable, but relatively, that makes
scary. It is, yeah.
Yeah. Now, from a plus side, if you are a established Galap keeper, that person's probably going to need to get rid of it. And you might end up with a free one because I can't take care of this anymore. So here you go.
Yeah.
So that's a future benefit you can't count on, but it could happen.
Yeah.
But wow, yeah, there's going to be a lot of bad decisions coming out of that pet store. That's for sure.
Unfortunately, yeah. I would hope that they're checking that you have enclosure and a heated shed, and because around here they're going to need heat at night. We do get down to freezing, and
Yeah, and we get pretty cold. We get decently cold here too. And, I knew that coming in. So everything that I build is insulated. I have a heater and a backup heater just in case. So short of a power outage, one of the two will work. And if there's power outage, I have a backup generator. So I'm very well prepared. I watch the Florida pet tubers all the time. And this time of year, oh my God, it's cold. Everything's going to die. What do I do? What did you do last year? What did you do? How about the summer?
Yeah.
Did you build a better enclosure than just plywood?
Yeah.
I saw one that you have. That thing is awesome. It's thick. It's multi layers. It's not
PVC,
plywood.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's got insulation. It's,
Yes. It's like, would you sleep in that? Would
yeah,
you consider that like? No, you would need a sleeping bag if you're in it. So your animal probably needs something. Their version of a sleeping bag, insulation. Hey,
yeah,
and I know it's good for clicks and views, but it drives me crazy. It's every year it's the same thing. Oh, it's cold. They're going to die. What do I do?
right,
I don't know. Prepare better. You know.
right.
It's
Like
But
just
people,
think
them getting
before
their
it gets
content.
cold.
yeah, exactly. When it's nice out, that way you can
Yeah,
build stuff. And if you go to zoos, unfortunately, because there aren't a lot of Galapagos keepers out there, there's not a lot of people that are readily sharing information, which is something that we learned. We did get lucky enough to meet a couple people that we were able to get advice and learn some stuff from. There's not a lot of that out there. There are some great natural history books. There's not a lot of keeping books out there on
right.
Galapagos tortoises. So when you go to a zoo, if you go to the zoo down here, the Wildlife World Zoo that was part of the TTPG trip, their
Uh-huh.
Galapagos enclosure, they have 3 or 4 in there. It's the size of Fitz's enclosure, or no, so it's smaller than Beagle's enclosure, which is just because of the way I built it, a little bit smaller than Fitz's enclosure. So
Hmm.
they have 3 animals in an area that I think I probably need to expand for 1 animal.
Yeah.
And when you go to San Antonio Zoo, they have something that's not even that big for their giant Aldabras and their Galops. The Phoenix Zoo, they have thing like their gates are kind of cool. They're kind of like cattle bars that the tortoises are too big to get through. But the amount of space they have is not what I would never keep them in that small of a space.
Yeah.
Um, and
But
so
that's what people have to look at. Be like, oh, this
exactly,
is,
if that's
yeah,
if that's your example, and they are the most boring, dullest things you've ever seen. It's just flat. Like
no
what we did.
plants. Yeah.
Yeah. When our pond was built, we took the dirt and we made hills for them to climb up and down them because I knew they needed exercise. If that didn't happen, I would have hauled dirt in here and built hills myself. There are these little balls hanging down. They're horse balls, like these little
They're
Yeah.
jolly balls.
Yeah.
jolly balls. I think it's Jason Abels was using those as enrichment, and they looked at them for the first couple months, but they've been hanging there for so long. If I swapped a red one out with a blue one, that might re-pique their interest and get them
Or
interested.
moved them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I raised their feeders up really high, so they got to stretch. They got to do a little more work for it. Anything that comes in their enclosure, if I get a long log or something for a tortoise enclosure, I'll take one, three, toss it in there just for them to give them something to look at. They'll climb on it. They'll look at. They'll sniff it. It just becomes part of it. It becomes something interesting for them.
Yeah.
So when you
It's
look
not
at,
just a square of dirt.
Yeah.
That,
yes, zoo enclosures, they're meant to be somewhat sterile, but the ultimate purpose of a zoo is to make money. You make money by bringing people in, and if you can't see the animals, they're
right.
not going to come in. It's just like Jurassic Park. There are dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour, right?
That's the thing about Iguanaland that I love so much. Unless you go on the tour and they pull the animals out to show you, you are very unlikely to see them. And I love that. It's just, it's very natural. Like they have plants to hide under, they're underwater, they're under roots in the water.
Right.
And not a lot of zoos can do that because, and I know Ty has gotten that complaint before. I paid all this money and I didn't see any of the turtles. Well, it's because they're doing what turtles do. They're
Right.
hiding and yeah.
And because of that you see the same thing on Facebook and turtle forums. I got a box turtle and it's a baby and I never see it. Well, that means
Yeah.
that's good. That's what it's supposed to
Yes.
do. Why isn't
Yeah.
it coming out? Because it's that's what they do. But because when you go to a pet store or a zoo, everything is right there in front of you on display. You get a really false sense of what that animal should be doing. Even if you watch nature documentaries, it takes them years to get 20 minutes of footage of this animal out
Right.
because they're elusive. They do certain things in the wild. So
If they sat out all the time in the wild, they would be gone. They'd
yeah,
be
they'd
a
either
snack.
overheat, they'd be eaten, predated, something bad would happen. We have a couple creosote bushes out there that they like to dig in and under, and I hate when they do that because that means now we got to make them back up to go forward to get in, and that is just, but
Like basically if they tuck their head into like a corner or something, it takes a lot to get them to like turn around.
'Cause you
You
got the-
basically have to make that eye contact in order to like, okay, it's time to go do something. But to get that eye contact can be challenging sometimes.
right. And I'm trying to think of some other unique things that for keepers that they just don't know they're getting themselves into. I mean, realistically, if you're buying them plants or you're growing plants yourself, it's just a little more. I mean, if you had say 10 or 15 redfoot tortoises, you're probably putting out a similar amount of food as you are with 1 or 2 Galapagos tortoises, which is still, compared to 10 dogs, not a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say as far as food, you're going to be using a lot more, but it's really not the most expensive thing in the world.
I don't know.
Water.
Spring mix is pretty expensive these days.
That's true.
It is.
Water fans, they need some water they can get up and into. You've seen some people, they'll build like concrete ponds. Those work pretty well. We just let them, we just, kind of like little mud things that we let puddles, hose up.
Like a little wallow or
little wallow. So they need that space. And if you're keeping them inside, that's where, or you have an indoor thing, that's where it can get kind of expensive because your utility bills, heating their enclosure, or if they're using it in the winter, in the summertime too, cooling their enclosure. It's kind of either end of the spectrum. You're still using a lot of electricity to get the temperature you want. And you've been out here and you've seen the evolution of my building methods. Tall building with PVC sides that work great, but they also let heat come out in the wintertime, so that wasn't great. So then a regular shed, well, now there's still a lot of headspace that I'm heating for no reason.
You're heating all that above them. Yeah,
exactly. So then I have something a little bit lower. So the next evolution of that will be similar to the one where the leopard tortoises and the small Galapagos divers were.
Something that you can just lift a lid.
Yeah, but just larger for the giants. And she mentioned, they grew fast. So 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, I had to redo some stuff on the side of the barn I built for them because they were getting so big, the bottoms of their shells were scraping the wood frame for the doors.
And you could hear it.
Yeah, I was like,
oh, jeez.
So, and to make the doors large enough, I had to take out 2 of the vertical beams. And really, I thought, I'd get this done in like a couple hours. It turned into a 2-weekend project, doing one at a time. I had to take the walls that I built off, pull the studs, but find a way, well, how am I going to get this to stay up if these studs come out? So then I had to brace it here. And it just turned into such a bigger project than I imagined. And that was me thinking, I've got plenty of years. And honestly, I think they're ready for a new building. I kind of expected the one that I built, that was the first structure that size I ever built in my life. I really didn't expect it to last this long. I was kind of looking at like a 5-year plan for that particular building, but it's been working good. It just, I did a surprisingly good job on that first time I built something. So really, next summer project or next spring project will probably be the beginnings of their new building,
their new house.
So that's something.
And you do have them completely separated. It's not like you're just like, hey, you guys go together for the nighttime for heat.
Yes.
So people should keep that in mind too.
They have their own stalls, just like a horse. Yes. They have their own stalls inside the barn. And that's another thing. What are you going to heat them in? We've seen some people down here keep them in, we have a Rubbermaid little mini shed that we use for our hay.
Yeah.
A person that we know, they use that to heat their tortoises. There's like 4 heat lamps in there, and that's where their tortoises go in and out of at night. It's adequate. It works, but that's definitely not the style that we're used to. So understand, expense-wise, you're going to be building a small building for them.
Yes.
Or the biggest doghouse you can imagine, you're going to be building for them. So it's not just the food, not electricity. Well, now you're looking at materials to build stuff for them, assuming you have a fenced-in backyard. One thing that is another thing to think about is they are rare, they are expensive, so you need to keep your area locked up because
secure. Yeah,
people want stuff. It was a few years ago. We talked about a couple times. Jerry, his place got robbed, and they tried to steal his tortoises, and they ran one of them over and ended up killing her.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so he's had a few robberies at his place because,
people think they can make a quick buck by grabbing some animals.
Yeah, they obviously don't understand the laws or how heavy a giant tortoise is. Yeah. And things go sideways. And his is it's one of the worst stories. And I don't even like to think about it because of the damage that was done to that animal.
It definitely messed up my sleep and stuff for a long time. I would wake up in the middle of
your
the night
feeling of safety and
and think, oh my God, I need to check on everybody, even though I know everybody's safe. We have cameras and stuff, but I needed to,
So when it comes to those existential crises that people have, when we were still in Alaska and we were understanding how these tortoises, individual behaviors, people call them personalities, how unique they are compared to a lot of our other tortoises, how quickly they become acclimated or even human associated, how quickly they see owners as part of their herd.
Yeah.
It was really surprising. And like, I actually talked to her about it. I had problems sleeping because I had to think about those whalers and those ship people that took these same tortoises. These tortoises aren't stupid animals. They look all
Right.
big, dumb, silly tortoise. They're not dumb at all. They're irritatingly smart and stubborn. I compare them to Great Danes because Great Danes are big, goofy dogs, which dog that we've had since we've been married. They're big, goofy dogs. They're kind of dopey.
They don't know their size.
Yeah, but
Just-
they're also weirdly smart. Tortoises are the exact same. I mean, they're not doing algebra, but on animal scale, they're very smart animals. And I sat there and thought, like, oh my God, these whalers were these tortoises being taken. Maybe they might have been feeding them a little bit because it was fun for them, and then whack, hack, and to kill a tortoise, it's not easy.
we don't need to
Yeah.
get into that.
So yeah, we won't get into it, but
Yeah.
like my brain and my imagination just like went through the entire thing, and I'm like, this is absolutely horrible. How could people do this? How
Yeah.
obviously, if I put myself in the whaling, if I was on a ship situation, a little bit different, but like that point where I was, like, I just flipped out for like I couldn't sleep for a couple days because my brain was like that focused on these animals are so incredible, they're so just amazing, and this is what people were doing to them. How?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh,
They're
gosh.
easy to form a relationship with.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have some interesting articulation in their neck that a lot of other tortoises don't. Most tortoises, where the atlas connects to the skull, it has some movement, but they can almost do a complete 90-degree periscope, kind of the way box turtles can. But box turtles heads are a little bit longer relative to their neck size. So I can't think of any of our other tortoises that even come close to the level of a upwards periscope like this, almost like a cobra without the hood can do.
Right.
And then they do something else that we call elevator. Some people call finching. Now,
Where the
thing
head
about-
goes straight
and
up.
they-
Yeah.
stand up big and tall and straight. I dislike calling it finching because pretty much every species of Galapagos tortoise will do that. There's only 3 islands that have that type of finch that eats bugs. Most of the finches are
Okay.
seeded and eaters on the Galapagos. So obviously, this was a behavior that the tortoises were already doing that the finches took advantage of because Aldabras do it, radiated tortoises do it, and there is no symbiotic relationship between finches and other animals with those tortoises. And if they were still around, I'm sure a lot of other giant tortoises would do it. Now, it's a response like when it rains, they do that. So that could be some kind of response to not drowning, because if you're down close to the ground when it floods, you're the first thing that floods unless you stand up. Just tapping them on their shells does it. Like, there's various things that get them to do it. Sometimes when you walk close to them.
Sometimes just looking at them is enough to trigger it.
So we call it elevatoring. Amber Rodriguez and hers, they call it hydraulics, which it kind of looks like a lowrider car going up and down.
Yep.
I really like, if I thought of that, I'm like, man, that's like really good. But we've been calling it elevator so long, I don't want to switch only because we've been calling it that for so long. But I really like the idea of hydraulics because it looks like that. So
Yeah.
I really am not a fan of the term finching. It's the same thing. We know what it means.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people saying the word creep. I don't like using that either. Creep is a culinary term for how much tortoise meat or turtle meat you're using. It's many bushels.
Are you serious?
Yes. So
Well,
many
now I've
bushels
got to
is
stop
a creep.
using it. That's
I
gross.
just thought it was a song.
No. Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, because I never heard that in my entire life. And then
So what do we call them? A herd?
Yeah, just call them a herd.
Okay.
Yeah, I never heard that in my entire life. And I've been a reptile person reading books and stuff forever. I'm like, where the hell does this term creep come from? So I looked up the etymology of it, and yeah, it's a culinary term.
Oh, no. Now it's
So-
ruined.
So when they were, wholesale slaughtering diamondback terrapins in the Northeast,
Yeah.
you had this many creeps of turtle meat.
Oh, gross.
Yes, exactly. So that's
I thought
why
it was something cute, but that is not.
no, culinary. Yep. That'd be like, how many steaks do I have running through here? No, they're cows,
Yeah.
Or look at all those
No.
briskets.
So I think we've covered everything today. If anyone wants further information or has questions for you, where's the best place to reach you?
Instagram, probably.
Okay.
I'm decently responsive on there. I'm an adult, so social media isn't the most important thing in my life, but I like to talk to people and usually around to help. So the Arctic Reptile Ranch _ between every word.
Okay. And I'll put a link in the show notes in case people are looking for you. So.
Yep, I have a YouTube channel that I was making a lot of content when I was in Alaska, decent when I first got down here, but then it's another thing just kind of went by the wayside because doing what we do out here takes more time and stuff that I just don't
Absolutely.
have the bandwidth when I come inside between working, doing that, her
And the
out here
animal
doing this
care
stuff.
and
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I focus more on caring for my animals than telling people about that I'm caring for my animals.
Yeah, I get it.
And usually when we
definitely.
get something out, like I'm the video editor, so like it's on me to like get all the footage together, and it just takes time.
Yeah. I have
It does.
so
It takes a
many.
lot of time.
I have no less than 12 or 15 folders of footage from various things I thought might be interesting to make YouTube videos and have scripts written up. Like I've been trying since we were at the 5-year mark of keeping our Galapagos tortoises to make a video about Galapagos tortoises. My script, and every time I do a new one, I'll put like a new date on it so I know which one's the most current one.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to do that is because when you watch a documentary, it's always the same thing. These giant tortoises, all majestic, they're living. And then, it shows them doing the neck raising thing, walking up the islands. And then a boy meets a girl tortoise. They make up baby tortoises. And, they might show one coming out of the ground or hatching out of its egg. And, circle of life continues. But what about all the time in between?
Yeah. What
So,
are they doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you care for them? How do you keep them? So, like, I've honestly been trying to make this video, and we shot video. There was one day that the jets were flying continuously. It was driving me nuts because I'm out there with the
Jesus.
tortoises and I'm trying to talk and like remembering what I want to say is hard enough with the jets. So I have so much footage and stuff of things, and it's just, I shoot it and we just don't get it back around to it. And now I've been trying to do that since we had them for like 4 years, 5 years. And like, I've got to change the script, having kept them for this long, this is what we've learned.
You've changed yeah.
Yeah. So
You gotta save it for a retirement project.
exactly. Yeah. So doing this podcast is actually a great way to kind of give people a heads up. Like, hey, yes, they are just tortoises that get really big, but there are some unique aspects of them getting
Yeah,
big.
some
And if you want to know
nuances
more,
and
yeah.
definitely. And I appreciate you guys sharing that with me today.
Yeah, if people want to know more, just hit me up on Instagram. Send me a message. I'll see it eventually because that little thing. My Instagram is open, so a lot of people like you have to follow them to see their pictures.
Right.
Again,
get
I'm an adult.
permission
I don't
and-
care
yeah.
about followers or anything. Just go to my Instagram, look at my animals, ask me questions, leave a comment. If you like them, like them. There's like 2 pictures of me on my entire Instagram because I care that little.
Right.
I just want people to see the animals, and if they have questions, then message me. So,
All right, great. Thank you, Jason and Tara, so much for joining me today. I actually learned a lot. I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you for inviting us on.
yes, definitely appreciate coming on here to share. That's something I've been trying to do, like I said, for many years. Tell people what happens in those middle years.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for Turtle Tea with TTPG. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. We're brewing up new episodes twice a month, every first and third Monday. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, you can reach me at Tortoise Wendy on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, or send an email to tortoisewendy@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on learning, listening, and loving those turtles.